Alright folks, it's Jake from Wani, and we have Davidson from Revocation here with us today. David, how are you going, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you. It's a nice early morning here. It's 7 a.m. here in Australia, so yeah.
Oh, yeah. What part of Australia are you in?
Brisbane.
Oh, Brizzy.
Yeah, but we're here to talk about Revocation. Revocation's got the new album coming out on the 28th of September. It's titled The Outer Ones. You must be excited to be releasing some new music.
Very excited. Yeah, I can't wait for the whole thing to be out.
It's a really good album. It's got your trademark thrash and tech death metal fusion on it. But I think, like, from listening through it, I feel like you've infused some more melody into your work here. And now, I know that you as a musician are interested in jazz theory, so did that have an impact on influencing the writing on the album?
I think a little bit, yeah. I mean, I work on all this stuff so that hopefully it sort of seeps in a subconscious way, right? I think that's the same with whatever technique you're learning or any theory that you're working on. You want it to kind of get baked into your mind so that it can come out in original and cool ways. But yeah, I think everything I work on hopefully has some effect on my playing.
Yeah, cool. And you guys did go for what I noticed is a sort of a grippingly dark theme on the album, obviously incorporating those melody pieces and that melodic sort of atmosphere into it. So can you tell us a little bit more about the influence behind the sort of dark theme behind the album?
Yeah, well, it's got definitely a Lovecraftian vibe to the whole record. There's several songs that are directly or indirectly influenced by Lovecraft's works. I mean, looking at the album cover art, obviously it's an ode to all things horror and sci-fi. And then as far as the music goes, yeah, I've sort of found myself in terms of metal listening to more of death metal and black metal rather than to thrash as of late. I mean, of course, there's still classic thrash records that I'll get a lot of rotation out of, but as far as newer bands that I'm checking out, it's more of the death metal and black metal variety. And we've also been touring a lot with some classic death metal bands that I grew up listening to, so I think that maybe had a influence or rubbed off on us some way. I mean, over the past few years, we've toured with Cannibal Corpse a couple times, and then Suffocation, Morbid Angel. There's been so many great Cow Decapitation, so many great death metal bands that we've been out on the road with, so I think that aesthetic kind of rubbed off on us a bit.
Yeah, cool. So what are the major components that go into writing a Revocation album? I mean, I know the band likes to make each release sound like it's Revocation, but how do you manage that when you're in the writing process, and how did you manage that with the Outer Ones?
It's hard to say exactly because, again, I try to write from just a creative place, right? But I mean, at this point, we've got 7 records that are out, so I can kind of take a look at, or this will be our 7th record that will be coming out, I should say. But I can kind of look at our catalog and maybe sort of distill down like what the essence of Revocation is. I mean, certainly there's death metal and thrash metal elements present on the record. We always try to have a proggy element. So when I'm writing riffs, I kind of try to envision, is this something that we're going to play live? Does this sound like Revocation? And more often than not, that's usually the case. But there were times on this record, like as far as like during the writing process goes, that I scrapped sections that didn't feel quite right, or we eliminated like entire songs that we were working on because it didn't fit the vibe of the record. Some of those I might revisit, maybe take a couple riffs out of and try to do something new with it for the future. But overall, I think the revision process of this record was maybe the hardest out of anyone, or I should say maybe we had the most revisions out of any record that we've ever done, just because I think we're advancing as musicians and we want to hear some different things. So it's like you gotta like maintain your core sound, but also like how do you do different things with it. And after 7 recordings, it can be a challenge, but I think it's always a fun challenge, right? Like we don't mind pushing ourselves to get to that next level. It's something that we all strive to do. It's like fun for us. I wouldn't really have it any other way. Like, it feels like cheating for me if I'm like doing something like that I'm not fully into. Like I need to really get behind it on like on an artistic level in order to put it on a record these days.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's actually a really good lead into one of the next questions that I had is that you mentioned that the Outer Ones will be the seventh record, and I actually did a bit of looking, and that's actually it'll be your seventh record in the last decade. So you're averaging at an album about every 18 months. So how do you guys find time to tour amongst all the writing that you seem to be doing? Because getting an album out every 18 months seems like really, really quick in this day and age.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know how it all happened. I had a lot of material, and I write a lot, especially in the early days of the band's career. It seemed like I was just writing constantly. I just was inspired, I guess. But now the writing is sort of slowing down a little bit. I'm focusing more on playing other styles of music. So while I'm not putting out the same amount of riffs, per year that I was, I guess, like, I feel like everything has just like a higher level of, I don't know, maybe not thought behind it, but I'm just at a different spot as a musician. So I'm kind of happy that I don't know when the next record is going to come out, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, it might be another 18 months from now, or it could be like 3 or 4 years, depending on how this tour cycle goes. Like, when you're young and hungry, like, you're just like kind of take every opportunity that comes along. You try to push yourself to like go into the studio and like hit it that much harder. We still have that same drive, but I feel like I kind of want to sit with this record for a while before I start working on the next one, just because it's a little bit of a departure for us in terms of this new sound. So I want to see like what new ideas come to me like on this next record cycle, and just see how the next one develops from there.
Yeah, fair enough. So the title, The Outer Ones, and as you've mentioned, it's a reference to that Lovecraftian sort of universe and the mythos, and that it's an apt title considering the links to the ethereal nature, especially of the songs and that, like with the melody that you guys have infused in a lot of these tracks. How much of an influence does Lovecraft's work have on your songwriting process, or was this just a moment where that particular work seemed to resonate really well with what you were coming up with musically?
Well, for me, the music always comes first, and it's not until after the songs are done that I start to craft the lyrics. So Lovecraft's works had a big influence on the lyric writing process, but I'm not sure how much it had on the songwriting process, right? Like, I didn't really come up with that kind of concept until a bunch of the songs were already written, and it was like, all right, this music naturally is having this darker vibe. I think going more Lovecraftian with the imagery and the songs would make more sense. So as far as the songwriting process, I wouldn't say like Lovecraft's works have a effect on the music, but certainly on the lyrics for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, obviously this one's a bit of a difficult question whenever you try and pose it to an artist that's talking about their music, but what would you say is the most unique feature on the Outer Ones that makes it stand out amongst the current Revocation discography?
Yeah, that is a tough one. I mean, I think there's so many unique things about this record. I mean, maybe, vocally, I chose not to go with any singing on the record. It's all screaming vocals, so death metal vocals and sort of more mid-range or like more higher pitched black metal style vocals. So that was maybe a bit of a departure from Great Is Our Sin. I think one of the trends that starts to happen when bands start to incorporate clean vocals is it's like people expect that they're gonna always maintain that level of clean singing on record. So we wanted to kind of go the opposite way with it and like play with people's anticipations of like what was going to be happening vocally. Certainly from a riff writing standpoint and like the drumming, like everything just feels maybe more aggressive than it ever has been. Just darker. We're got really spacey on some of the songs. So there's that, and then from a solo standpoint, I really pushed myself to just work on my phrasing and come up with new ideas and new approaches to solos. Every release I think is sort of a snapshot for me as where I'm at as like a guitar player, like a lead player. So this one I'm really happy with how the phrasing came out, and I think the lines sound maybe different than on previous albums.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe there's a similarity between like Great Is Our Sin and this one, just because they're gonna be a little bit closer together. But just I think in general, like I just try to push myself from a lead playing perspective on the phrasing specifically.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Now, this is one question that seems to be coming up a lot with bands that I interview, and one that's obviously growing in a bit of popularity, but Revocation as a band isn't located in the one location, and what we're seeing a lot these days is bands are taking members that are geographically dispersed, so spread out around the world, and obviously with that there comes a bit of difficulty in terms of trying to practice and writing and the recording process. So how does the band manage the difficulties that you face in recording albums being so far apart, and how did you manage this for the outer ones?
Well, we were just as spread out on Great Is Our Sin, so it was a pretty similar process. I mean, I'll start the writing process on my own, where I'm demoing out songs, collecting my riffs together, and I sort of envision everything in my mind first. So I'll record the riffs, and then I'll picture like what the drums are going to be, picture what the bass is doing, maybe even picturing or hearing sort of vocal lines in my mind like early on. And I'll play with that form a bunch before I send it out to Ash. I usually send it to him first, and then he and I will flesh things out. But I'll get it pretty much like 85% to 90% fleshed out in my head before I send it out, and then from there, like we'll hop on Skype and we'll chat about the song structures. He'll send me drum demos back. Sometimes he'll record himself playing drums. Other times he'll like program the drums out, and then we'll get in a room whenever we're gearing up for tour. So we always try to save like a little bit of time on practice sessions just to like work on new material and go over new stuff. We don't dedicate a ton of time to that when we have like a big rehearsal for a tour coming up, but I always like to carve out like maybe like an hour or two here and there just to work on some new material, so it's not like we're doing everything like all at once. Like by the time we go in to record a record, maybe like the guys are familiar with like 30 or 40% of the material that we've jammed out over the course of the year, and then we'll do more specific like album rehearsals as we get closer to the writing process.
Yeah, fair enough. And as I said, it's one of those things where we're seeing this happen a lot with bands these days, and it's just interesting to see how each band tackles those sort of difficulties. So it's really good to hear that.
Yeah.
So I've got two final questions for you really quickly. So you're a very educated musician, someone who has a fair bit of musical knowledge, and I'm sure that's something that you include in your writing, as you've already mentioned. But I have to ask, why do you think your music appeals to so many people on a very intellectual level?
I think it's just the thought and care that we put into everything, right? Like we're trying to do something different with every release, and I think that people really appreciate that forward-thinking nature of the band.
Yeah, fair enough. And the final one for you, so closing out the year, you've got your album launch tour through North America and Canada, followed by a European tour that finishes just before Christmas. You guys tour very extensively. I mean, I know that you've done a whole lot of touring earlier on in the year, but where can fans expect to see Revocation in 2019?
We'll definitely be hitting it hard. We don't have anything really on the books for 2019 at the moment, but we just kind of hear whispers of things that are happening. So I would probably expect like maybe a late spring, early summer tour. We certainly would like to get back to Europe to do festivals, and then from there we're going to see how the rest of the year plays out. what seems to always happen is like we'll have a couple tours lined up early on when the record is geared to come out, and then once the album comes out, all these different opportunities start coming in because there's a buzz about it, and everyone's got the full album in their possession. So, I mean, on the last record, we wound up on the Power Rangers soundtrack, right? So, like, I mean, literally anything can happen once the record's out and it gets on different people's radar. So I'm excited to see what 2019 holds for us, and I think it's going to be a really great year for the band.
Yeah. David, thank you so much for your time. The Outer Ones comes out September 28th. Make sure everyone goes out and grabs a copy. But yeah, once again, David, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.